You know, Roger, I love fall, even if it requires a little bit of cleanup in the yard.
Well, it's not just thinking about cleanup this time of year. We're actually thinking about color in the garden for spring.
So we're going to plant some bulbs today, huh?
That's right.
What have you got for us?
Well, I got a whole bunch of things. Now, when you go to buy bulbs, you got to think about a couple of things. First is what colors you like. Second is sequence, because we can get bloom to stretch out from early spring into summer almost.
So different bulbs will come up at different times.
Right. We're going to start off with a crocus. This particular one has a purple flower, but it flowers very, very early in the spring. And then next to that is Muscari. This has a nice blue color to it, and it's another early bloomer.
Okay.
Then we're going to switch over to the Narcissus or daffodils. Okay. This particular one is an early bloomer, but it has a big double flower on it. You see that one right
Yeah,
there?
double narcissi, I see that.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we switch over to a mid bloomer with an orange throat on it, and then a late bloomer, which is a good yellow color.
And you got some tulips here?
Right. They'll follow pretty much after the daffodils.
Okay, so now how do we get started?
As usual, digging holes. Before we start digging the holes, we got to think about what pattern we want these flowers to come up in. Now, some people will like a real formal pattern. They'll excavate out a large area and put the tulip bulbs in 4 to 6 inches apart on a grid, sort of like what you'd see in Holland.
Okay.
Then there's a random pattern, and that's where you just take the bulbs, throw them in the bed, and wherever they land, that's where you plant them.
And your preference?
I like a more natural look, and that's where you're going to take and dig a big hole, and you're going to put in bulbs 3 to 5 in a hole, so that when they come up in the spring, you're going to have a whole grouping of color.
So make a bunch of clusters.
That's it. The good thing about planting bulbs is you don't have to dig very deep. In fact, the bulb will tell you exactly how deep you should be. This daffodil bulb is about 2 inches in diameter. Now you want to go 2.5 to 3 times that diameter.
So about 5 or 6 inches deep, we're all set.
We'll be perfect. So we'll just clean this out. We'll add a little compost to it from fertilizer, and we're ready to plant. Now, with the holes all dug, we're going to add some compost to the holes and mix it into the bottom.
And the compost is for?
Bulbs hate to have wet feet. They'll rot. So if you mix that into the soil there, it'll help it drain.
All right, some good drainage.
Yeah, now once that's ready, we're going to add 1 to 2 teaspoonfuls of fertilizer for each one of these plants.
Just regular plant food or
No,
some
this is a
fertilizer?
special bulb fertilizer. It has very low nitrogen and some phosphorus in it for these plants.
All right, that's going to help these flowers come up in the spring?
No, actually, this isn't for spring. Right now, that bulb has everything it needs to produce a flower in the spring. There's energy stored in here, the flower tip, everything's ready to go.
So why the fertilizer?
That is actually going to help produce a flower a year from next spring. These are going to be in the ground for a long time, and they're going to keep growing.
Okay, so these are perennials,
Yep.
all right?
So mix that in good, and we're all set to put the flowers in.
So what have you got us putting in here?
Kevin, that's a daffodil bulb. You can tell by the brown color. Usually they have 2 bulbs, sometimes even 3. It's much different than a tulip bulb is. This is a tulip bulb. You see how white it is and squat compared to the daffodil bulb.
All right, well, I'll use the label on the package. Any particular way you want me to set these in here?
Yeah, I like to nestle it down a little bit so it doesn't tip over. I like to put 1 in the center and then ring it with 4 or 5 all the way around it.
How far apart?
Oh, 4 to 6 inches apart.
All right.
I'm going to start over here with these tulips and do the same type of thing.
Why do we plant these things 6 months before they actually come up? I mean, why bother?
Well, Kevin, they come from the mountain regions where it gets very, very cold. So in order to survive that cold, they have to take and store the energy in the bulb and then go dormant for the winter. So we have to duplicate that same thing in order to get the flowers in the spring.
So if they didn't go dormant, they wouldn't survive, and that's why we do it.
And that's right.
Great.
Plant some more. Tuck them in tight so they don't tip over. Kevin, these holes are staggered about so that everything when it comes up will look natural. Also, you notice in the back of the daffodils, they tend to be taller than the tulips, so I don't want them to hide the tulips, so I put them in the back.
Good thought.
Okay, what I want you to do is take the dirt and fill it the hole right back up to the original grade of the bed.
Yeah.
Once you get it filled in, take and give these bulbs a good drink of water.
Right.
After that, you can take some of the mulch in the bed and put it on top. If you don't have mulch, you can always use the leaves that you gathered up earlier and pile them right on top.
So this is for insulation.
Yeah, we don't want it to freeze.
All right. Well, at this point, I guess we wait till spring before we see